It's so freaking obvious. You know, the fact that now everyone is acknowledging that Biden had help in 2020, it is just such a feel-good moment for me. So many times our videos were either shadow banned or limited. So many times we would always get yelled at or get dismissed by quote unquote Democrats and liberals. So many times some of our nearest and dearest of friends, me and Daniel dealt with this firsthand, where people would say, hey, you guys got to really stop being critical of the Democrats. Biden's our nominee, and our nominee. Quit saying that there was election fraud, but there was. And we have once again been proven correct. And I'm going to push this as far as I can because, listen, I'm one of the few people that does believe that two wrongs do make a right. Because every time since 2016 and onwards, freaking liberals, Democrats, vote blue no matter who, corporate media pundits, and those with larger platforms kept telling Bernie Sanders supporters to get over it. 2016 and 2020, we got to put that behind us. We got to look forward and hold Biden's feet and the Democrats' feet to the fire and push them left. Bernie's in on it too. That's part of the plan. Bull! No! No, I will not. I will not let that go. And neither should anyone else. Because Bernie Sanders, that nutless cuck, that spineless wonder, that heartless son of a bitch, took everyone for a ride. And now what? Oh, Democrats, where's our coalition? Where's our coalition? You told us to fuck off. You told us to go away. Or you told us to fall in line. Hell, you bullied a lot of people in 2020. You guys kept on posting articles and doing videos saying, if you don't vote for Biden, we're going to get Trump, and that makes you a racist. I'm going to keep on saying it until we get to election night. To my audience, vote however which way you want. And if you don't want to vote, that's up to you too. You don't owe anyone a vote. And by the way, I'm voting third party. I'm voting independent. Just so I can live rent-free in your head, liberals. Because you're not going to get away with it. And before anyone says, well, gee, aren't you helping out conservatives and Trumps? No, I'm not. Because you want to know who helped out Donald Trump? You, Democrats. Hill Dog and Bill Clinton. Oh, good old horny Bill and Hill Dog Hillary. They're the ones who encouraged Trump to run. Hell, they were friends with Donald Trump. They went to his freaking wedding. Democrats boosted Trump. Democrats rigged the primaries in 2016. Bernie Sanders was a nutless cuck that allowed it to happen. Took his supporters for a ride, not once but twice. The Democrats gave everything to Trump. Hell, even Nancy Pelosi voted for some of Trump's policies. People forget that. Remember old hagbag Nancy doing that? I do. It's the Democrats that created the situation with Biden. Democrats, you're the ones that picked an old man going into dementia and potentially having Parkinson's. You're the ones that did it. But now with all this stuff, with Joe Biden's world crumbling around as he's stuttering and stammering and shaking, everyone's wondering, oh, what do we do? What do we do? But wait. I want to give a huge shout to Case Study QB because they're saying the quiet part loud. And I love it. Because I want to be mean. For me, this is very therapeutic. And it should be for you. Because now when these liberals come, knock, 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 help us out. You have every right to address them in any manner you see fit. You could politely tell them no, or you can really go ham on their asses. Whatever which way you feel like, dealer's choice. And if anybody asks you, why are you being so mean? Just say you learned it from Hard Lens Media.
And I've said this over and over again. Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was the only person who could beat Trump. He was picked because he was the only person that could beat Bernie Sanders, rightly or wrongly. And by the way, for the Sanders fans out there, I'm not judging, but that conclusion was made, okay? Oh my gosh, coming out of Nevada, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So they were looking for.
Do that again.
Like they are now, back then said, yeah.
Do that again.
I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
I just wanted to make fun of him. Hey, Miguel H., you got a homework assignment. Get that in rotation loop. That'd be great.
Going to work. So they will. I don't think that's going to work. So
these jagoff bastards.
Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So they were looking for an alternative. And tip of the hat to Joe Biden, he had the record. 8 great years as vice president. And
that's all what you got. 8 great years as vice president, Mr. Democrat. Really? 8 great years. Well, let's talk about those 8 great years under Barack Obama. Under Barack Obama, let's talk about those 8 great years. Let's talk about it. First of all, under Barack Obama, we got rid of habeas corpus. No big deal. Whistleblowers and journalists were detained, arrested, blacklisted, removed. We went from 2 wars to 7. The people who caused the 2008 economic collapse just got a slap on the wrist. As for the Bush-Cheney administration, Obama said, we got to look forward. We got to go look, folks, we got to look forward. Obama also took a little sip at Flint, Michigan. Remember when he did this? He did this. He wetted his lips, right? He did that. Yes, I'm going to be an asshole here. I'm going to be a prick. All this stuff about what? Biden and his record? Oh, let's talk more about Biden and his record. He was against busing and desegregation. He was against the civil rights movement. He was against a woman's right to choose. Oh, and under Barack Obama, that's right. They could have codified Roe v. Wade, but they didn't. They didn't because it wasn't politically expedient. Folks, it's not politically expedient. Oh, let's talk about Joe Biden, especially prostituting himself to corporations. Let's talk about how, what's that? Oh, that's right. What the crime bill? He had the record? No. Listen, I remember 2019, 2020 a little bit differently. The correct version is this. Yes, Biden was going to be their number one choice, but, you know, everyone was, even corporate media, to their credit, I know, was saying, hey, there's something wrong with Biden. And so they're trying to throw anything at the wall and see what would stick. From Kamala to cackling hyena, the cop, failed miserably. Beto my stork. Remember Beto O'Rourke, the guy who stands on tables? Yeah, well, that didn't do any well. Pete Buttigieg, the fantastic mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who wasn't really even running his town. Nah, that didn't work. Klobuchar, Jesus Christ, duck and dodge. He's throwing shit everywhere. The Democrats tried everything. Hell, they even brought out Bloomberg himself. Didn't work, and they all went right back to Biden. And then, after Nevada, there was that phone call that Obama made to everybody. Drop out. Go for Joe. And Bernie, being the cuck, he let that happen. He let it happen, not once, but twice. I really thought he'd be ready. You know, case in point, I just want to pull this up here, too. This little tweet. This little tweet from Easy Street. Shout out to the real Nico House, good friend of the show. As horrible as AOC is, there's never been a single politician in the history of U.S. politics who stole more money from the working class while masterfully masquerading as a revolutionary like Bernie, the nutless cuck Sanders did. Who let you down more, AOC or Bernie? Hey, let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 if it was AOC. Type 2 if it was Bernie Sanders. Type 3, both. I'm not rigging my elections. I'm just giving you a fair and clear choice. But see, the Democrats are stuck with this because they felt that Bernie was going to be such a big threat. But honestly, Democrats, you know, looking back at it now, perhaps Bernie would have been a huge disaster and disappointment too. But this embarrassment that you guys have, I mean, this is your dog. This was your guy who you thought had the best track record. This was your man, your ace in the hole.
Or there has been quite a bit of polling done in the 12 days since the debate. Can you show us if there's been any change in the numbers.
Yeah, there has been, and it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret it? So what we're going to show you here, these are 8 polls. These 8 polls have all been conducted entirely after the debate, and these are the results from those polls. And then what you're seeing next to it in the right column here, same poll, their previous poll before the debate. So you're getting each poll compared what they found before, what they found after. A few of these, though, they were conducted back in the spring, so there's a bit of a time lapse on them. But I think you do see some clear patterns here. First of all, this one is obvious. Every poll since the debate has either had Donald Trump ahead of Joe Biden or a tie in one case. And most of these polls have shown some kind of a movement from toward Trump and away from Biden. Trump by 1 to Trump by 2, Biden by 2 to Trump by 2. Not all of them, but you see a pretty clear pattern. So I think what you
it's abundantly clear. When you have a senile old man who craps his pants, looks like a frozen statue like this. Here, you know what? I have to do this because I am a sore winner. I just love being proven correct. Hey, liberals, this one's for you. I'm Joe Biden. Oh, Joe Biden. Hey, I'm Joe Biden. Where am I at? It's 1950 all over again, Jack. But you know what? That's actually not a good interpretation because I have more movement than Biden. Got to work on my acting.
see here is a Trump lead here. If you average these all together, his lead on average, Trump's is 3.4 points in the post-debate polling. In movement from the previous polls, about 2 points, about 1.5, 2 points of movement toward Trump since the debate. And it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret that? I mean, some Democrats might make the case. You hear them making the case that, look, you know, this is still close. The bottom hasn't fallen out. It's not like Biden's lost 10 points, 20 points, something clear, something definitive. Democrats could say, hey, this is something that can be recovered from. On the flip side, other Democrats, I think your previous guest just was making this point, would look at this and say the bottom line, Joe Biden does not lead in a single one of these polls. Joe Biden's lost ground in most of these polls. And we live in a world where the margins are very thin in elections, one way or the other. And a shift of a couple points may seem small, but it can be decisive. So some Democrats could look at these with just alarm, and others could look at them and say,
to be a fly on the wall in the homes of liberals as they're foaming at the mouth and crying. Now, a lot of people have called me and said, well, gee, aren't you worried about Trump becoming a dictator? Aren't you worried about him firing people? Aren't you worried about him doing damage? A little bit. I am concerned about the future, but it's not about Trump. It's about what comes after Trump. Did you ever think about that, liberals? I think about what could have been, where there actually were people of real integrity who were very serious, who actually believed in a better future. See, Bernie put on this masquerade, and Bernie, you know, I remember as soon as Joe Biden made his announcement in 2023, hey, you and AOC were the first ones really rushing out that door of the progressive community, quote unquote progressive community, and endorsed your good friend Joe. You went to bat for him. How is he going to improve things? How is he going to make things better? The Democrats and the party elite are already admitting the truth beyond truth, the truth behind the truth, and that is they rigged the primaries from the start, 2016 and 2020. They made it all up. Here, I want to just bring up another fantastic person, Donnie Douchebag, Donnie Deutsch. Remember when this guy said, oh, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, I might as well vote for Trump. Now, all of a sudden, things aren't looking cash money. Oh, don't be thinking on me now, computer. How dare you? The computer wants to think. Bill and Bob, stop screwing with my internet speed.
I'm a student of history. Every society, before they fall into a dictatorship, there's kind of acquiescence, then there's resignation. Feels like if we continue with Joe Biden, that's what we're doing. I do not believe in my heart of hearts, so I'm saying this on my children, that Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump, and that's all that matters.
Oh no. Oh no. Dictatorship, 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 dictatorship. You know, we have a lot of scummy politicians, and it's easy to vilify Trump. And I know Bernie's out there saying, we got to support Joe to stop Trump. Hey, Bernie, we've had corrupt politicians for decades now, some of them whom you call good friends, like Joe Biden, some of whom who've implemented and passed neoliberal policies to which you have done nothing about. You had a movement, you had organizations, you had people at your side, and you abandoned them for a party that doesn't even respect you, you clown. But all of a sudden, we have to be afraid about dictatorships. Really? We do? We've been living under a couple of dictatorial politicians for quite some time. In the United States, we've had politicians in office for 20, 30 years. That goes for mayors, governors, state and federal House and Senate representatives. So what's wrong with you guys? Worried about a dictatorship? Are you projecting much?
Joe Biden is a great man and he's been a great president. But we have to have the courage right now to look at the unknown. Right now it's a blank piece of paper. Let me say what the alternatives are. Vice President Harris, Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, Gretchen Whitmer. Those, I believe in my heart of hearts,
No Bernie Sanders, right?
give us a better chance. It's interesting. You mentioned the Times report. It says top Democrats swallow fears and back Biden. No, you can't swallow your fear. The generations before us, they were great. They stormed Normandy, right? They had to face bullets. We don't have to do that. We're just going to be judged if we have the courage to take on the unknown.
If you haven't read The Dark Knight, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the comic book. There's a scene where Commissioner Gordon is talking to his replacement about the Batman and brings in comparison to FDR. And he mentions Pearl Harbor and he says, folks like to think that everybody jumped up after Pearl Harbor hit and that we're ready to fight. And then Commissioner Gordon goes on to say, truth is, all of us were afraid. We were hiding underneath our beds until we heard Roosevelt's voice assuring us that we can win. And then Commissioner Gordon goes on to say, then I've heard reports about how maybe people knew that Pearl Harbor was going to happen. And he couldn't judge it on what to do. It's easy to look back at the past and say that those people were brave. It's easy to look back at the past and say, yes, this is how it was. But the thing is, when you look at the past, you have to realize, folks, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. There's a rhythm and rhyme to history. And Bernie Sanders, being the cuck that he is, was a charlatan like any other false charlatans out there. All the while going to bat for, again, senile fools, emperors and kings like Joe Biden.
No, and it's going to be messy and scary. And we have to break the furniture. And by the way, if we end up with Biden, it'll be a great stress test. But this is the time. And if everybody behind the scenes does not feel that Joe Biden can win, let's say it out loud. It doesn't mean Joe Biden's not a great man. He's not the solution now. We can't be governed by fear. And I just feel right now we're afraid of the unknown. The unknown can be exciting.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Stop being afraid. No matter what happens on election night, it is out of your control. You cannot control what's going to happen. If you're going to vote, you cast your vote, and then you go on with the rest of your day. Like I said before, I'm casting my vote and then cooking a nice steak dinner. That's what I'm doing. That's the only thing I can control, and that's it. The rest of it, we'll see how it plays out.
And scary at the same time. Let's not be fearful.
So
generations before us have not.
Donnie, Senator Michael Bennet came out on.
Yes. Donnie douchebag is afraid. He's afraid. But how can we always not forget this right here? Again, this jackass here admits the truth. He tells us for what really happened, and that was that the party selected Biden. Democrats, you picked an old dog, and now the old dog doesn't want to quit. He's not backing down. Good luck to you guys at the convention. How are you going to pull it off? What are you going to do with such little time left? You had, at max, 2 years to address this problem, and you kept kicking the can down the road. Even Bernie, you nutless cuck, you could have done something, but you didn't, because you guys are cowards. MSNBC, you are cowards. CNN, you are cowards. The entire Democratic Party and its voter base, you are cowards. You're so afraid. You're afraid of Donald Trump. You're afraid of the unknown. And you're afraid of the great coalition that once was, is now gone. Well, fine. Live with your fear. Either face it or fuck off.
And I've said this over and over again. Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was the only person who could beat Trump. He was picked because he was the only person that could beat Bernie Sanders, rightly or wrongly. And by the way, for the Sanders fans out there, I'm not judging, but that conclusion was made. Okay. Oh my gosh. Coming out of Nevada, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So they, just like they are now, back then said, yeah, I don't think that's going to and said, yeah, I don't think that's going to said, yeah, I don't think that's going to said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
These jackasses. Now it's so obvious. It was abundantly clear in 2016. It was abundantly clear in 2020. And now it's very clear to me now. Here, Democrats, Biden, Bernie, AOC, all you liberal voters. Things could have been so much different if maybe you listened to progressives and independents. Bernie, maybe if you realized in 2016 that you had lightning in a bottle that really could have done great change. But instead you let the lightning out and you'll never catch it again. You will forever be remembered as the man who abandoned his people, his movement, and when history called you to step up, you, like the cowardly lion, ran away as soon as the mean wizard showed up. The great Oz just yelled at you. And that's what you did, Bernie. You ran away. Maybe you weren't expecting people to listen to your message. But we should never again fall for the trap of people like Bernie. And we should never again let people like the Democrats bully us. They're going to need us now more than ever. They're going to be sending you text messages and emails and phone calls, begging like dogs for money. If someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC or anybody else comes knocking at your door, calling you up, texting you, emailing you, asking for money for the Democratic Party, tell them these words. And you could tell them that Hardlands Media said it too. Beg harder. Beg me harder. And if anybody asks where you learned such mean language and behavior, just say it. You learned it from Hardlands Media, as you should.